Hao, it's Danai. This week we're going to be talking about free resources in Chinese. One of the things you might not know about me is I'm very stingy. I don't like spending money if I don't have to, or if I don't think it's worth it. This also applies to Chinese, where I think if I can get a resource for free, or if something is available for free, I'm gonna use that resource. I think there's also a misconception that if you want to learn a language, you have to spend a lot of money doing so. And I do think that if you're serious about a language, it's worth putting money in and investing in that language. But at the same time, there are so many resources for free that if you're not sure about a language, or if you just want some extra resources on the side, I mean, totally take advantage of them, why not? So today I'm gonna go through a few of the free resources that I have come across while learning Chinese. But it's not gonna be obvious resources. It's gonna be resources that I think you might not have heard of or come across before, so I'm not gonna be doing apps and podcasts and YouTube. Obviously we're going to be focusing on Chinese because that's the language that I'm learning, but I'm doing this video in collaboration with my friends Natalia and Chloe, who are learning Korean and Japanese. So if you're interested in those, here's what they've got for you this week.
Hey everyone, my name is Chloe, also known as ShuoShuo Studies. In this week's video, I'll be taking you through some free resources for learning Japanese. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll see you over on my channel.
안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. Hey you. It's Natalia, and today my video will be about free resources for learning Korean as a beginner. So if you're interested in starting to learn Korean, or you've already started learning Korean, or maybe you've been studying for a few months, I have some resources that I really like and I'd like to recommend to you. So if you're interested in that, come on and say hi to me on my channel. But yeah, I hope I see you there.
Okay, we've moved over to my coffee table / desk because we're going to be talking about websites. So I have 3 favorite websites that I use that are totally free. There's HSK Academy, which I've banged on about so much on my Instagram, Yellow Bridge, and also Chinese Grammar Wiki. Let's start with HSK Academy. HSK Academy was honestly a godsend when I first started Chinese. It basically breaks down the vocabulary lists for every HSK level. It also has a practice test to see if you might be ready for the HSK test, and it has example sentences, which were honestly the most useful part of this. So the way I would use it would be I would scroll down to the word that I wanted to learn, and basically what it has is all of the definitions that it can mean. It has the pronunciation in pinyin and the audio. It also has a breakdown of the characters, so you can open up the individual characters here and see how they're used in other words. It's also just super useful if you want to learn traditional Chinese, which I do, just because mainland China is the only place that uses simplified Chinese. Everywhere else, so Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Macau, etc., all use traditional. So I find that really useful for me. But then the most important thing is that it has example sentences at the bottom, so you can see how a word is used. So I would write the character, the pronunciation, and then use their example sentence to help me remember how to use the word. Okay, I love HSK Academy, but the reason I've stopped using it recently is because I've moved on to HSK 5. And from HSK 5 onwards, it just doesn't have as many example sentences that I can use. So instead, I'm swapping to Yellow Bridge. Yellow Bridge is honestly my answer to everything. It's such a huge resource. I basically mostly use it for its dictionary, but it also has flashcards, it's got memory games, again, HSK Prep, etc. It has far more example sentences than HSK Academy. So recently I've been using example sentences from Yellow Bridge. The last website I want to talk to you about is Chinese Grammar Wiki. It's basically got all the grammar from A1 or HSK1 level to HSK3. It's also got an amazing section of the website called Chinese Keywords, which are all the tiny little words that Chinese people throw into their sentences that as a Chinese learner take a really long time to learn to use naturally, I guess. You can also search for the grammar by the HSK books, or you can just search for the grammar point that you're stuck with, and it will come up, it will tell you which level it's on, and it will give you basically sentence examples. So useful for understanding grammar, basically. You might have already graduated like me from university, but universities are still such a source of knowledge. They have so many good resources, even if you're not a student at that university. Universities are really where I look for resources that are not necessarily specific to Chinese language learning, but still offer me value for my Chinese. So a lot of the time what I'll do is literally just type in a university name that I know is a big name, like Harvard, Yale, whatever, and then Chinese into Google, and it will show me resources that that university is offering. One of the main universities that I use is SOAS, which is the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, and their China Institute is so good. Every Monday they offer free seminars, free webinars for the public. They're completely open. You can just type in SOAS Monday lectures and then China, and it will come up with this list of upcoming events and talks that they're holding. So for example, here we've got coming up on the 14th of June, The Great Decoupling, China-America and the Struggle for Technological Supremacy. I love these free webinars. I didn't go to university to study Chinese or anything Asia related, so I feel like while learning Chinese, there's been a huge hole in my knowledge of China, of Chinese history, of culture, of politics, that sort of thing. So these are such a great way for me to kind of fill that gap. I'm a firm believer that, you know, language doesn't exist in a bubble. You know, to fully understand a language and to fully understand a people, you have to understand the culture and the politics and everything that goes around. A lot of the stuff that I've learned in webinars has fueled my understanding of how the language is used as well, so super useful. From a language perspective, universities also just offer resources for exams and tests that you're going to be doing for Chinese. So for example, Manchester University here in England has all these past paper exams for HSK. So I used these a lot when I was preparing for my HSK4 exam. I mean, universities are trying to teach students and everyone really more, so they will go out of their way to provide resources and to provide at least guidance in where you can find other resources if they can't offer something. So, such a fan of universities. Okay, let's talk about Google Chrome extensions. This is one of the main reasons why I will only advocate for Google Chrome as a search browser, because you can get extensions that you can't get on any other browser. I have so many extensions added to my Google Chrome browser, mostly for Chinese. It's a problem, but they also add so much value and make my Chinese language learning so much easier. Let me show you. The first extension I want to talk to you about is LLN, which I've kind of gone through in my last video, so if you want an in-depth look at it, go ahead and check that video out. But LLN is basically how I add multiple subtitles to Netflix. It also lets me pause the video and find the meanings of individual words that are used in the sentence and give sentence examples as well. The other extension I want to show you is just called Zhongwen. What it does is allow you to hover over individual words if you're reading a Chinese article, for example, or on any web page on the internet really, and it will come up with the meanings of the words that you're hovering over. And this last extension I want to show you, I'm so excited about. I think it's so cool. It's called New Tongwen Tang. Let's zoom in here for a little bit, because let's say you're on a web page with simplified characters and you want to read traditional. By turning on Tongwen Tang, it swaps the characters that are simplified into traditional. Similarly, if you're on a web page that has traditional writing and you only read simplified, you can swap it to simplified by using Tongwen Tang. It's so cool. Okay, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned if you are serious about learning a language, it's worth investing money in it to, you know, learn from a teacher, for example. But a lot of teachers also just offer free resources out of the goodness of their hearts to help you. So I would 100% recommend following teachers online on Instagram, on their other social media, on their websites if they have them, just to be able to see what they're offering as advice even, or as actual hard resources. So for example, I found my Chinese teacher through Instagram, and her Instagram is just full of useful videos and posts about Chinese, and it just adds value every time I scroll through Instagram to pass posts like that from different teachers. A lot of Chinese teachers will also just have YouTube channels where they go more in depth in certain grammatical structures or mistakes that people make. So for example, Jun Jun is someone I really love on Instagram and also on YouTube. She gives little sketches of Chinese and how you should use Chinese in different ways. ShuoShuo Chinese is also so good. She has videos on different sort of categories of vocabulary that you can use. So here LGBT because it's Pride Month. And it's just bite-sized, fun little ways of getting extra Chinese into your day for free. The news. Such a good way to improve your language. It is current vocabulary that people are actually using day to day. It's also just a great way of learning about Chinese current affairs, and it's totally free. My favorite website to use for Chinese news is actually BBC Chinese. BBC has language services in a lot of languages, so even if you're not learning Chinese, you can, just type in BBC, for example, Vietnamese, and it will come up with a Vietnamese service. For Chinese, I really like it because I find the language simpler than Chinese news, which I find to be a lot more elevated. And because it's on the BBC, a lot of the time there'll be an English equivalent of that article that I can read beforehand to try and get my head around at least what they're talking about, because the news is difficult in any language. And again, you can always use the extensions that I talked about before, so New Tongwen to change it from traditional to simplified, or Zhongwen to kind of hover over words that you are struggling with to understand better. Okay, and before I go, I've got a bonus category for you guys, which is miscellaneous. The first thing I'm going to recommend to you guys is free trials. Use free trials. You basically get the product for free for a certain amount of time, and even if you don't use it beyond the free trial period, you still get some benefit by doing it for however long you want to. For example, Mandarin Blueprint has a really good trial period, and it's got really good videos about Chinese pronunciation and how to sound more like a Chinese native speaker. Especially as someone learning Chinese abroad and not in a Chinese speaking environment, pronunciation's really something that I struggle with. So, just going through a few of their videos and getting the pronunciation right for words, especially the R sound in Chinese, which is so difficult, that was really fun for me. And obviously, if you really love the product, then you can always continue it afterwards. Also, edX is a really good website where you can do university courses for free. So I started doing Chinese history courses on edX from Harvard. I was literally following a Harvard professor who was a leader in his field teaching me about the Qing dynasty, which was so cool. And with edX, you can pay them to get a credited certificate at the end of your course. But at the same time, you can just do the free version, learn the material, but not get the certificate at the end. For me, it wasn't important to get a certificate. I just kind of wanted to know about the Qing dynasty. And lastly, I know I'm not talking about apps in this video, but this is a way to level up Pleco. If you're a Chinese learner and you don't have Pleco, what are you doing? Get Pleco. It's basically a dictionary app, but it has so many extensions to it for so many different things. You can literally buy graded readers through it, you can buy a Chinese history textbook through it, you can buy flashcards through it. But this is a really good free way to upgrade your Pleco, which my friend taught me. Basically, if you go into your add-ons, you can add the demo version of several add-ons. Now, the Oxford English Dictionary add-on on Pleco costs £20, but if you get the demo version, you will still get a certain proportion of the vocabulary and the example sentences that the Oxford English Dictionary provides. And I found that so useful because when I first got Pleco, some of the example sentences that they gave were so weird and so random and absolutely useless. So by getting the demo version of the Oxford English Dictionary, I suddenly had a whole bunch of new, more useful sentences that I could see when I looked up a new word. Okay, that's everything that I've got for you. If you guys know of any free resources or ideas that I haven't mentioned in this video, comment below because I also need them. Don't forget to check out Natalia and Chloe's videos because they also have such good ideas every single time. This is the last video that we're doing as a collaboration, but it has been so much fun to do it with them. So thank you, Chloe and Natalia, for dragging me out of my hermit hole. And for the rest of you guys, I will see you soon. 下次见，拜拜。